Hi, everybody. We're here and we're so excited to have our virtual discovery series. Today we're here with Holly Merkley, and she's going to share with us about how to do sourdough baking. So, hi, Holly. Thanks for coming on with us.
Hello.
So, Holly,
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Holly, how did you get interested in doing sourdough?
So about 6 years ago, I have always been very interested in nutrition and food, and one of my children were experiencing some different side effects of food, and I was kind of on a health journey just to see if I could help her a little bit more. And my older sister came across natural yeast or sourdough, and she said, Holly, you just have to try this. And I was kind of overwhelmed because I had a lot of little kids, and she kind of worked out the nuts and bolts for me and got it so that it was very simplified, and she taught me how to do it. And since then, I love it. It's just a part of my routine. I don't use it every day, but it's just how I cook now, and I love it. And I just see a lot of good benefits that it's been for our family as well. So that's how I got started.
That's awesome. So you have found that the health benefits have been great for your family for sourdough?
Yeah, I think so. We kind of go on those waxing and waning where my kids are like, I just want store-bought bread. And I'm like, but this is so good for you. So we have a give and take. And but I do try to sneak it into a lot of anything I bake with grains. I really try to use my natural yeast with that.
Wonderful. So tell me, what is sourdough or natural yeast?
So basically it is flour and water that is housed in it's an entire ecosystem, really. And it's full of bacteria. It's the natural occurring bacteria and yeast that's in the environment. And so this is the ecosystem that it's used, or that is housed in here. And that is what is used through a slow fermentation, to make bread that's called sourdough. So the bread, I like to call it the natural yeast, but sourdough is way more widely used. But that's basically what it is.
Awesome. So what's the difference between instant yeast and natural yeast?
So natural yeast has been used for thousands of years. If you read, there's history in Egypt, and them using, just taking their basic grains that they grind, putting water with it and letting it sit out for a couple days, and then they take that and bake it over a fire. And that's basically what the natural yeast is. It's been made a little bit more sophisticated, where now it's kept in a jar, and that's been the last few hundred years, where they have their starter and they pass it on from generation to generation, and that's all the yeast they had. That's the only way they could have the unleavened bread, so that it would raise and not just your flat bread. So it's been used for many, many years. And during the late 1800s, early 1900s, scientists started to discover that they could extract yeast and basically make it so that it could be more shelf stable. And as time passed, more women were needing to go back to work, and so that demand increased. And so in a lab, scientists discovered, figured out a way that they could chemically modify this yeast, so it could be quick rising and shelf stable. And so that's kind of where that commercial yeast, baker's yeast, active yeast, instant yeast, that's kind of what all of those names have come about with those. And so I like to call it the art. It's the art of sourdough. I think it's kind of become lost lately. I think there's been a little bit more of a push, or a need. I guess a need has come back, and a desire where more people are wanting to use the natural yeast.
That's really amazing that you do that. That's wonderful. often we do just go for the convenience, right? So yeah, having the art of it is really, that's a great way to put it. So that's awesome. So you talked a little bit before about why, or that there are some health benefits to using natural yeast. Can you just go into that a little bit more? Tell us a little bit more about what the health benefits are.
Yeah, I think just an important part to understanding what the health, or how the health benefits happen, is just understanding how the fermentation process works in sourdough bread. So in general, seeds, just any kind of a seed, it has this phytic acid that protects it, and it's made that way so that it can stay as a seed for as long as it needs to, until it's put in the right environment to grow into a plant and do its thing. So this phytic acid, it's found in the bran part of the seed. It also is a kind of a protection that of all the nutrients that are in there. And so when it's a wheat kernel, for instance, a wheat seed is ground, it breaks up a little bit of that phytic acid, but it isn't in the way that will maximize the nutrition. That you'll still have the phytic acid there, which often that can cause like bloating, discomfort. So when somebody's struggling with that,
right,
attribute it to wheat or grains or whatever. Oftentimes that's kind of what's happening, is that phytic acid it's not digestible in our stomachs. And so the sourdough, as it starts to, what it does is it's a slow fermenting process. And so it starts to break down that phytic acid, and it extracts those nutrients, the good nutrients. So it breaks down that phytic acid that's been protecting those, and then allows the nutrients to be released, and then our bodies can absorb the nutrients a lot more, and you're not experiencing as much of the discomfort that comes when you eat bread. So so I mean, and the thing is, there's so many great nutrients in the wheat, that there's magnesium, iron, phosphorus, so many of the B vitamins are in there, and zinc. So it's so sad, because when you eat that bread, you'll see like cereals are fortified with all those things, because even though it might have the wheat, you're not extracting it from the wheat. So it's just a really healthy way that you can eat, or that you can get so many more of these vitamins. So these are, I just have to put a little disclaimer in there too. Like, there's a lot of scientific research going on to this. So if there's something particular of interest, I would say go search the web. I'll share a little bit more about the science, but with some of these, like, these are things that I have seen in my own family, or I've tested. I like to test on friends. So your body isn't just burning through it so fast, and that's kind of with a lot of whole grains. And so it helps you eat less even. So the acids that are produced during the fermentation process, it lowers the glycemic index of this bread, which is so awesome, because diabetics who have to be really aware of blood sugars, and we all really need to be aware of blood sugars too, but it just makes it so you don't get these spikes in your blood sugar. It really keeps an even blood sugar. The acid produced during the fermentation process lowers the glycemic index of the bread, and there's a lot of research on this right now, because diabetics are able to eat this bread without getting a spike, a blood sugar spike. University of Guelph, Ontario, they have a whole team that's been researching that. I think it took place a couple years ago, and so that's all coming out where we can research that, and it's quite exciting. I was able to test it on my brother-in-law. He's a type 1 diabetic, and so I was like, are you willing to try this for me? And he did. He was able to eat the bread and didn't receive that glucose spike. And a couple of friends I've tried more locally, they've been able to also enjoy bread again, which they just had to avoid for so long. So I think that's very exciting. Other things, it boosts the immune system. It has bacteria in it. So this really good bacteria, lactobacilli, and other bacteria that boost your health, which I notice my family doesn't get sick as much. we have just a little bit stronger immune system. I feel like that's contributed to that good bacteria that we're eating. Iron absorption increases, and then because it's breaking down the harmful enzymes that can be in grains, that phytic acid, even that gluten, I like to think of it as it's digesting that for me. So it increases iron absorption, and then it's also breaking down any of those harmful enzymes in the grains, so the phytic acid, that gluten. And I like to just think of it as it's digesting all the bad stuff and allowing me to get all the good out. So people with gluten intolerance, the allergies, acid reflux, they've been able to eat it and not have the same reaction that they would with normal wheat bread.
That is awesome. I'm a bread lover myself, so I think it would be really difficult if I had one of those conditions to be able to have to just completely give up bread. So that is great. That's a great option. That's awesome. Great. Now we're going to learn how to care for and use our sourdough starter.
Awesome. So the basic part of it is flour and water. I always say make sure you start that you have containers. Let's talk about that first. It needs to be housed in a glass container. Metal, plastic, the metal, it leaches into the starter. It doesn't thrive very well. Plastic is kind of the same thing. It needs to be in a glass. I always recommend a mason jar that's a wide mouth, just because it's easier for getting it in and out, feeding it, everything.
Does it matter how large the jar is?
It probably a quart size. Your pint size it expands.
Right.
So this is what it starts with, and then this is what it grows to.
Okay.
So you can see the level is going to raise quite a bit. So the quart size is probably the best size. You always need to make sure you have at least a quarter of a cup, so 1/4 of a cup to start with. And I'll explain a little bit more why you might not have that. So you just need to always make sure that you're keeping a quarter cup in your main jar.
Okay.
So you start with a quarter cup, and for starters, just add a 1/2 cup of water. And this is just my own tip. I always do the water first. This is the Danish list, but you can use a spoon or a fork. And this is a tip that I use, is I just like to mix the starter in with the water so it gets all mixed in.
Did you say it's warm water or?
I usually get a little bit warmer than cold, just because the starter will dissolve a little bit easier.
Okay.
So it's all mixed in. And then the ratios, some people do like a very specific, like 100% hydration or 80% hydration start. I simplify this for myself because I need it to be very simple and quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I just will do the 1/2 cup water, and then I use 1 cup of whole wheat flour. And it comes down to a consistency. So I'll say 1 cup of flour, but it might be a little bit more that you need, just because if you have freshly ground your flour, it has a lot of air in it. And so it's going to absorb very quickly. And so you might have to add a little bit more. So I'll show you what the consistency needs to look like. And I always use a smaller measuring cup so I don't make a mess all over my counter, and that's from experience. So I'm gonna use a 1/4 cup just so that it gets into my jar nicely. So a thing with the wheat, this starter needs to be fed whole wheat flour, and it can be store-bought. I choose to grind my own because I use so much flour and it's way more cost effective. But if you were to feed this just unbleached white flour or bleached white flour, it would die. It doesn't have, the white flour's been stripped of all the nutrients that this needs to survive. I usually always add in at least a cup of whole wheat flour, and then I can do the rest white flour. But for the actual feeding and taking, this always should only have whole wheat flour. And this one in particular as well, just wheat flour. There's others, you can create a starter that has different types of flour, like rye flour or buckwheat flour. So there's other types of sourdough, but this particular one is just for whole wheat.
So when you
add that in.
So just a question. So when you start, if you're starting your own, you have to always continue to use the same kind of flour. Am I understanding that right?
I think so, for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can create different starters based on whichever type of grain you want to use it for.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So, but I only have experience with wheat.
Okay.
As I'm mixing it,
Yeah. Okay.
this consistency is very thick, and it's like, I like to compare it to like a brownie batter.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah.
So it's, you can still see some of the moisture. That's important because I want it to be completely dry. But it has that, it's thick. Like it doesn't, it comes off by whisk, but it's thick.
Okay.
And the reason I have found that most people will err, like I always say, err on the side of more flour than less. A lot of times as you're learning the process of this, you'll get like a dark fluid on top. And that will happen naturally over time. Like if I let this sit for a full week or a week and a half without ever feeding it, it's going to get this dark stuff on top. And that doesn't mean it's bad. That's just the process that it's going through.
Okay.
If you let it sit for like a whole month, it might go bad without ever touching it or doing anything. The whole starter might go bad. If it gets that dark fluid on top, I just always pour mine off because it's quite sour. It's a very potent substance now. So I like to dump mine off. You don't have to, but you can just mix it in. But if it's happening, if you're getting that dark fluid after like 2 or 3 days, then you're probably not giving it enough flour. And if you increase the flour, that problem will probably go away. So I feed mine. I use it probably every 3 to 4 days. So once in a 3 to 4 day period, I'll use it to make something. And that keeps it alive and active. When you, say I'm going on a vacation, I've left it for 2 weeks and I just leave it even thicker, a little bit thicker than this. So it just has lots of the flour, the food, to maintain that, the whole ecosystem that is going on inside this jar. So you're going to be gone much longer than a 2-week period. I would recommend having a friend take care of it or something.
Come feed your pets, Come feed your pets, water your plants, and feed my sourdough starter. That's awesome.
Yep, that's exactly right. Okay, so once you feed it, you just mix that in. I mean, it really takes 1 to 2 minutes, if that. I use these kind of lids. They're just a plastic. They're from, I think, Ball makes them. I just use that, but you also can use just a regular mason jar. You need to flip it this way, so that the seal is on the upward end.
Side, okay.
And you don't want to put it on super tight, just because the gases still need a little bit of air to escape. And so these ones, I find the plastic isn't a seal, and so it works really well. If you don't need to buy those specifically, you can just use any lid, just flip it. On Amazon, I think, like Walmart, I think I've seen them there. A few tips I have, so that it doesn't get pushed to the back of your fridge and forgotten about. I like to keep mine on the door, just a little bit, just so it's always right there and like, oh, I haven't used it in a while. I either need to use it or I need to feed it.
So you do keep it in your fridge?
Yeah, so this particular one needs to be kept in your fridge. You can leave it out on your counter, but you need to be using it and feeding it every single day. Oh. Because it's just it'll grow and expand quite a bit.
Okay.
So
okay, that's good to know.
It needs to be I keep it in the fridge just so that it slows down that process where I don't need to use it as often.
Okay.
So a lot of questions I often get is just what kind of wheat I use. There's 3 different kinds of wheat that I use. These are kind of the basic kinds of wheat. There's a soft white wheat, and you can see the picture, but it's just a soft white wheat. It's when this is ground, it's more of like a pastry flour. It's just a lot more delicate. I don't ever use it for bread because the gluten in it is not as high, and so the bread will be very crumbly. But for muffins, waffles, pancakes, that kind of stuff, it works great for that. There's a soft white wheat, which I use the majority of in my baking, and there's not a whole lot of difference between the red and the white. There is a slight taste difference. We can taste it in our family just because I've been experimenting so much with it. But hard red wheat is the easiest to find in this area. I find that most people in their food storages or accessing the hard red wheat is what most people use. A lot of times I'll do 2 cups of white with 1 cup of red when I'm grinding, just to kind of give a mix of those 2. Different places. I have a few places that you can get wheat. There's farmers around here that grow it. And my recommendation would probably be there's a Facebook group that you can say, where do you get your wheat? And people can say, oh, I get it from this specific farmer. I'm not going to put those out there right now just because I haven't checked with those farmers to see if that's okay.
Right.
There's a Facebook group that we'll post that link to there called Sourdough Fun.
Yep.
And you can post on that and ask. Some of the How to Write colonies also do sell the wheat, so you can just make a contact with them directly. The Lethbridge Cannery sells number 10 cans of the hard white and the hard red wheat. And then there is a place called Grainworks. It's located in Bolton, Alberta, and you can get your soft white, your hard white, and your hard red wheat. So there's a lot more variety from that particular place.
Do they have an online store, or do you just go to Vulcan and get it, or?
Yeah, so it's called grainworks.com.
Okay.
And you just call them. I think you place your order and then you go pick it up from them. I'm not sure if they ship or not. If you have a big enough order, they may.
Right.
So.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, and I had a question. And maybe you've talked about this and maybe I just spaced it. What kind of wheat do you use for your actual starter? Like feeding your starter?
So I just use a combination of my hard red and hard white.
Oh, okay. Maybe you already said that, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's
perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, I choose to grind my own wheat flour, for one, because it's way more cost effective, but also you have to be careful when you buy whole wheat flour in the store, just because you don't know how long it's been sitting on the shelf. And after you grind it, some of those nutrients start to, I don't know what the term is, but they get lost over time. So I think within a month, it should almost be used.
Okay.
So it's a little bit harder. Like if you're really going for maximum nutrition, just try to grind your own.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. That's good to know. Very interesting. My goodness, I can tell that you've really researched this and it's been a passion for you. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. I will have a link that you can get. I have just like the kind of the steps for feeding, just like the step 1, do this, this, and this.
Right.
So that will be on it. That will be a handout that they can access.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much for this great information, Holly. For our viewers, if you want to see some more of Holly's sourdough creations, you can look at our other videos. Also, do you want to just say the email that you have one more time?
Yes. It's sourdoughfun692@gmail.com.
That's right. And also, if you click the links below, we'll put the links below. And also, if you want to see any other videos, you can subscribe to the Jim and Mary Curl Library YouTube channel. So thanks, Holly. We look forward to some more videos and some more sourdough creations. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.